teach you all, how to answer questions about evictions. We just kind of want to give you a high level introduction to what's going on in the eviction landscape, so to speak, right now. And just to introduce you to Gulf Coast Legal Services as a resource for your community. Okay, so if my slides will advance, there we go. So just a quick overview of what Gulf Coast Legal Services does. We provide direct legal services. That means we have attorneys on staff. We are a nonprofit. We're grant funded predominantly. So we don't charge clients anything, but our attorneys are not volunteers. They're paid. They're staff members. They're licensed attorneys in the state of Florida. They're very, very good at what they do. The difference with our attorneys and private attorneys is our attorneys are more like social workers. They are not working for legal aid to make a bunch of money, because they don't. They are doing this because they genuinely care about the community and people who are more vulnerable. So we have 4 predominant areas that we work in. We have financial stability, and what that means is if people have any kind of legal issue that is impacting their ability to be financially stable, they need to appeal a denial of public benefits. They need life planning because they have some assets and they're worried about what will happen if, God forbid they pass away and they don't have anything in place. They want to be able to pass things on to their families. If there are creditors, or if they have a buy here, pay here car lot that's trying to repossess things or having credit issues, all of that stuff that we can't fit anywhere else falls under financial stability. Then we have housing. And in housing, we deal with fair housing, meaning if someone's being unfairly discriminated against and they're part of a member of a protected class. And Robin, you jump in here if I get any of this wrong, because she's the lawyer. I'm not. So I'm just their cheerleader. Then we also deal with evictions and foreclosures, anything that may prevent a person from getting into or staying in safe and stable housing. And safe is a big one too, because we also work to make sure that landlords are doing what they're supposed to do to ensure that rental properties are safe for the people who are living there. We have a family law unit. We do divorces and child support petitions and injunctions for protection and all of that. The only people that we serve in our family law unit, however, are victims of domestic violence. That is because they are in the most need. They're in an emergency situation. Sometimes it really is genuinely life or death. So if you have a family that is a member of your congregation and you suspect that they are having some domestic violence or abuse issues going on, please let them know that they can get a free attorney to help them get away, because it's easy to tell somebody just leave. But if they depend on their abuser for financial support, or if their housing is in their abuser's name, that's a problem. So we help them navigate the legal part of that. Immigration, similarly, we help folks predominantly who are victims of any kind of crime or violence to see if they can qualify to legally stay, to become documented in the United States. So those are our 4 big buckets of substantive work that our attorneys do. Again, it's all free. We place emphasis on helping vulnerable populations. We serve a lot of seniors, and the older I get, the younger 60 sounds. So because I'm pushing it right now, but that's the definition of seniors, thanks to the Department of Elder Affairs. So we'll go with that. Families of school-aged children, we partner with the Juvenile Welfare Board. And again, we want to give priority to victims of domestic violence who have children, because the children can't learn at school if there's violence going on at home, or if they're homeless, or if they're facing eviction, which leads to the next bullet, which is persons experiencing or at risk of homelessness. Ex-offenders re-entering society. typically the ex-offenders that we help are not, they haven't committed any kind of violent crimes, because then they would show up as an opposing party in another GLS case, most likely. But we do have some folks who had, say, minor drug offenses, but they can't get their driver's license because they don't have their birth certificate, and now they're homeless, and it just ends up in this big cycle. And then we also work with LGBTQ individuals who are also needing to get birth certificates, or who are victims of abuse or violence. So those are the just some of the groups that we consider vulnerable individuals. And we really will serve anyone who is low income or who is at risk for any of the different areas that we mentioned above, who need help with financial stability, housing, domestic violence, or immigration. So, woo, I got through that quickly, huh, Robin?
Right.
So now I'm going to turn you over to the real brains of the operation. Robin Stover is an incredible attorney. She's licensed in tax court. She's done family law. She's done everything that we do at GLS. And now she is over our two biggest units. And right now, I dare say our two busiest units. She is over housing and financial stability. So with that, I will shut up and turn it over to Robin.
And then just one quick thing before, Robin, you start, just to draw everyone's attention, we do have the chat box. So as we're going through, if you have questions that you want to have answered, make sure you type those into the chat box, and we'll also leave room for questions as well. So with that, Robin, I turn it over to you. Back over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our meeting today, and thank you 211, and thank you, Tammy, so much. It's an honor and a privilege for me to speak to the faith-based community today. I wanted to start by telling everyone that, let's go back to feudal England. Let's go back to when we had lords and knights and serfs and vassals. Let's go back hundreds and hundreds of years. Back long ago, what we learned in law school, which I think really explains everything pretty clearly, is that the right to property, the right to have property and live in property and be safe and secure in your property, is like having a bundle of sticks. A bundle of sticks. Like, let's just say I have a bundle of sticks right here in my hand, and I am the owner of the land. So I have all the sticks. It's my land. I own it. I have all the sticks. I can keep it forever. My family I can pass it down to my family. Now, back in olden times in feudal England, the lords would give away a few of their sticks. They would give a few sticks here and there to knights and other people. And in return for that, the knight or the serf or whoever it was would pay the lord to stay on that land and work the land and live on that land. So when you own a property, you have all the sticks. And when you rent that property out, even from long ago, you give a few sticks to someone else. So our tenants are people with some of the sticks, and our owners are people with a lot more of the sticks, the rest of the sticks. And the exchange there, going back to ancient England, was payment for some of the sticks. So over the decades and the hundreds and hundreds of years, things have evolved. But essentially, when you rent land, you are getting some sticks. And as long as you fulfill your responsibility of paying, then you get to keep your sticks. And your sticks include quiet enjoyment. You must be safe in your property. You can quietly enjoy your property. The landlord cannot come and knock on the door, wake you up, bother you, harass you. They have given you your sticks and you're safe and sound. When you're not safe and sound is when you can't exchange your money for your sticks. And that's where everything starts. And that starts with a 3-day notice. And the 3-day notice is in Florida what our landlord has to give to our tenant to explain to them, tenant, you owe me the money for this rental period, and you have 3 days to pay me or give me my sticks back. You can pay and you can keep your sticks, or if you don't pay, you can move out in 3 days. If you don't move out, then then under the law, I have the right to proceed and force you out. So a 3-day notice in Florida, the landlord has to give the tenant has 3 days to either pay or leave. Of course, the next step, if you're a tenant, respond to the 3-day notice. What's the response? Well, you have to pay. You have to pay so you can keep your sticks. If you don't pay, the process continues. If you pay part of it, partial rent, let's say you owe $1,000 a month, but you can only pay $400. If you pay $400 and the landlord accepts your $400, then the landlord he or she can still evict you for the $600 you haven't paid, but they have to go back and start over and give you a new 3-day notice that says how much you owe now. Or the landlord can say, I don't want partial rent. I want all the rent, or else you have to give me your sticks back. So that step is a negotiation of partial rent between the tenant and the landlord. Now, if the landlord doesn't accept partial rent or the tenant cannot pay at all, then the next step is the landlord has to file a legal eviction in Florida. A landlord cannot force a person out of their home without a legal process. We're not back in feudal England. The Lord cannot come and just pick you up and move you out. There is a legal process. A summons and complaint are served on the tenant by either a process server or a sheriff. And that summons and complaint is fairly simple. There are instructions on the summons. The summons, most people, when I talk to them, I say, let's read your summons together. Let's read it because it tells you exactly what you have to do. You have 5 days to respond to the complaint. You have 5 days to respond in writing, and you have to take your response, your written response, and you file it in the court, in that court case. Then you have responded. After that, there will be a court date where that tenant can come before the judge and make their argument, if any, as to why they should not be evicted. Now, most importantly, through all of this, if one of your parishioners, one of your community, one of your friends is unemployed and cannot pay their rent, then before they get a 3-day notice, before anything happens from the landlord, they should call us, call legal aid organization, and get some accurate, good advice and get some accurate counsel and go over your options. Let's see what options could be available. So that's my talk on the first slide.
So quick
Okay.
question, can I do a quick question, Robin?
Yes.
So in Pinellas County, I believe it's only the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office that does the, what is it, an eviction notice. They're the only entities that go out and serve those evictions. I believe we don't have any other entities that do that.
Okay.
In
So,
Pinellas.
okay, yeah, okay. In Florida, in Florida, most counties in Florida, any summons and complaint is served either by the sheriff or by a certified process server. But now Mickey is saying that in Pinellas County, eviction, summons, and complaints are going to be served by the sheriff. So what that means is the sheriff has to come to that tenant's residence. They have to make 2 attempts to knock on the door and personally hand that complaint that says, I am suing you. I am suing you. This is an eviction complaint. I own the property. You have an agreement with me to pay $800 a month. You have failed to pay as of September 1st. I am now seeking to remove you from the residence, and I am seeking to have you be responsible to pay me the back rent. So that summons and complaint, the sheriff must come out and try to hand that to the tenant at least twice. If the tenant is not home, if the tenant is not at the home or hiding or somewhere else, then after 2 attempts, the sheriff, under the law, can post that summons and complaint on the door. So many people will come home on a day and they'll find that eviction summons and complaint posted on the door, taped on the door.
So I just want to kind of be clear to let folks know that here, because I know sometimes there could be, a landlord saying directly to folks that I've heard, I'm evicting you, you need to leave right now, when in reality, that's not being served by the landlord. So just so everybody knows that. So thank you for just spending time on that, Robin. I know you got a lot more great information, so I'll let you go on.
Okay, no, that's right. We talk about that a bit later, but in Florida, there is a legal process before the landlord can remove you from the property. There is no, what we call self-help is illegal. It's very illegal. So they cannot, they may do it, they may succeed, but they cannot forcibly come and lock a person out or remove them. That is against the law. Okay. So what protections are available now for tenants in Florida? Well, as we know, well, you may not know, but for many months over the summer, the Florida governor, through executive order, had temporarily halted evictions from moving forward in the Florida courts. That ended. So now there is really only one governmental protection available to tenants, and that comes through the federal government. Specifically, it comes from the Center for Disease Control. The Center for Disease Control, that's the CDC. The CDC promulgated a rule stating that if a tenant can swear to a declaration containing 7 different elements, and they sign and they date that declaration and they present that declaration to their landlord, then the landlord is prevented from evicting that tenant until at least December 31st of 2020. So the Center for Disease Control declaration is very, very easy to find on the internet. You literally go to Google and type in CDC declaration form, and it's the first thing that pops up. And that declaration is for the tenant to read. The tenant has to swear under penalty of perjury that 7 things are true. One of the things that they have to swear to is that they have tried to obtain, they have made their best effort to obtain any available government assistance, any government funds that can help them pay their rent. They have had to use their best efforts to apply for that assistance. The second thing is that they can't make more than $99,000 a year. The third thing is that they have to swear under penalty of perjury that they have had a loss of income due to a loss of a job, loss of employment, or extraordinary medical expenses, perhaps from battling an extended case of COVID or something like that. but essentially they have to have lost income. The fourth thing is that they have to swear that they have made the very best effort they could to pay what they can, which in some cases may be nothing, but they have had to have tried to make partial rent to the best of their ability. The fifth thing is that they have to swear that if they're not allowed to stay in their home until December 31st, that they are going to be homeless, at risk of imminent homelessness, or they're going to have to live with others in close quarters, which we know is not healthy. It's not recommended due to the pandemic. So they have to swear that they will be homeless, near homelessness, or they will be forced to move into a situation that is not going to be healthy during the pandemic. They have to understand that the rent is still due. The rent is still owed. The CDC declaration and any government moratorium in place doesn't forgive rent being paid. And then they also have to understand that the CDC moratorium ends as of December 31st, unless extended, which is right around the corner. So if someone comes to you and they're in a mad scramble, I would advise them to call Gulf Coast Legal Services immediately, call legal aid immediately. And I would also advise them to educate themselves and look up CDC declaration form and present that to their landlord. Okay? So that's the information on that slide. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Robin, may I add something?
Yes.
So when they sign this CDC declaration form and they say that they've looked at all of the available governmental assistance, this CARES money that everybody keeps talking about, that's government money. So in other words, if they haven't been to 211, if they haven't tried to get funding from their city, the county, 211, a legal aid provider, then they really can't, in earnest, sign that document. And when it goes before a judge, and it will, and the judge asks, have you gone to 211? And they say no, then they're no longer covered under that moratorium. Is that accurate, Robin?
Yes. What happens is that if that CDC declaration, well, if they present that the idea is to immediately present that CDC declaration to your landlord. A tenant needs to give that declaration to their landlord so that the landlord has notice. Now, if the landlord goes ahead, which they are allowed to do under the law in Florida, if they go ahead and they file that eviction lawsuit anyway, then the tenant has to understand that they need to, bottom line, they should come and get an answer from a legal aid organization like Gulf Coast, file that answer in the court along with the CDC declaration. But if that for some reason is just not possible, they need to take that CDC order over to the courthouse. They need to write on the top of it what case it belongs to, or the clerk will ask them, and file that CDC declaration, because the courts need to stop when they get that CDC declaration in. They are going to set a hearing on the validity of that CDC declaration. Okay, and then the judge is going to determine on a Zoom call or on a phone hearing whether or not the judge will verify or take testimony or delve into the facts to see if those points there that have been sworn to are true. So yes, the judge, that my experience is that yes, they are setting hearings on those declaration forms.
Okay, do we have any questions? I'm going to look in the chat before Robin goes on to the next piece. Just a quick note about the Pinellas Cares financial assistance program through individuals and families. If you know of anyone that is needing help right now, I would highly encourage them, and I'll put in the chat box, they need to email their ID and an overdue bill to help@211tampabay.org, and I'll put it in the chat box as soon as possible. Again, the program will be ending, closing the front door to people applying, and I'm underscoring that like many, many times, in the very near future. And so you really, if you know somebody, please encourage them to do it immediately, today, tomorrow, by the end of this week. We really need to make sure that they start that process now. So just, and again, I'll put it in the chat box where they are to email that to, and we can come back. I'm going to turn it back over to Robin. I don't see any other chat questions at this moment, to keep going, because I know we're halfway through already with so much, and we can come back at the end for additional questions. Thanks.
Okay, so Gulf Coast Legal Services provides significant housing help with many other issues other than just non-payment of rent and ability to pay rent. For example, if we look at the first paragraph there, if a landlord refuses to make necessary repairs to a rental property, that's going to affect a person's safety and security, GLS can intervene. And this goes back to the bundle of sticks once again. Back in feudal England, you got your sticks and you paid your money to the lord or the knight, but you did certainly, the knight was not coming around making necessary repairs. But of course, society progressed, laws are put in place, and now housing, people who rent housing who are tenants have protections under the law, under the Florida law. So the Florida law says that landlords have a responsibility, a duty to adhere to building and housing codes in the community where they own property. So if a building or a home is uninhabitable or has a severe problem, such as no running water, no heat, the roof is leaking, there's mold, it's uninhabitable, or some extreme other issue there, then the landlord has a duty to keep that home in habitable condition. And if that is a situation, please encourage your friends and your parishioners to give us a call so that we can look into that. Also, I'm sure you remember in 2008, 2009, we had what was termed the Great Recession. And really, we had a huge, just a huge crisis with foreclosures due to the mortgage meltdown, the credit crunch. People had taken out mortgages that were jumbo, they were predatory, and people were being foreclosed on left and right during the Great Recession. And we learned a lot about how to defend mortgage foreclosures during those years. And we also learned that mortgage servicers, the people who collect the payments for mortgages, I'll tell you what, they have gotten a lot more organized over the past 10 years. It was a disaster in 2008. And I don't find that it is a disaster any longer. I find that we are able to present mortgage modification paperwork to mortgage servicers and often get a good result for our clients. So that is something that Gulf Coast Legal Services had a lot of experience with, and that we are still most able to assist with. And then the third check mark there, that's what Tammy was talking about when she was talking about fair housing. Okay, fair housing means that if you are a person or you know someone who is in what we call a protected class of people, They may be elderly, they may be of a certain race, religion, marital status, or they have a disability. Then there are, again, the government, society over time has put in laws to protect those those people from being discriminated against in their ability to get housing. Also, this is what Nikki was talking about earlier. A landlord, that last point there, a landlord cannot engage in what we call self-help. And that means when the landlord helps themselves by removing someone from the property, by locking them out, turning off their utilities. I just had someone yesterday who called and they were out of town and they came home and their front door was bolted and locked. The landlord had changed the locks after when they were gone. So that's what the law refers to as self-help, and that is prohibited. They can't lock someone out. They can't turn off the electricity. They can't turn off the water. Those come with penalties for a landlord who engages in those activities. Any questions about that?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, so we can go to the next slide.
Do you want one more slide or do you see, okay, how to get
Yeah,
started?
no, that's fine. So, okay, so here we are as to how to get services. And this is very important. Of course, Gulf Coast has an 800 number and we are available. We have people on the phones, live people. You just call us up at 800-230-5920. You simply listen to the different services provided, and then you select your service, you dial that number, and you will be connected to one of our paralegals in that particular unit. Family law, you push the extension for family law. Housing in Pinellas, you push the extension for housing, and one of our paralegals will be on the phone to assist you. Also, due to the pandemic, we have really had a strong response to our online applications. Just www.gulfcoastlegal.org. Go to our website. On the left-hand side, it says request assistance. Click on that, and it takes you right to an online application, which really is actually comprised of a few, not many, questions that a person can answer, and then click submit, and that comes right to our paralegals, and we will attend to those as promptly as possible. And then, of course, we see that we do prioritize. We prioritize emergency cases such as domestic violence and urgent housing matters, such as the people we're talking about today, people who are unable to pay their rent. Hopefully they contact us before they even receive a 3-day notice, but certainly as soon as that occurs.
And I would just like to add that we've been getting a lot more voicemails lately, and that is because our paralegals are getting so many calls that if they're on a call, of course, it'll roll to the next available paralegal if there's someone available. But because of the volume of calls, people are getting sent to voicemail, but please let people know to leave us a voicemail so that we can call them back. We call them back in the order that they're received, unless they indicate that they have a 3-day notice or that it's some kind of emergency, in which case those, like it says, get prioritized first. We try to always make sure that we tell everyone that, because we don't want anybody to think that we're ignoring calls. We are absolutely not. We, like many of you, are just getting slammed with so many requests for assistance that we just have to prioritize things, and we're getting to them as quickly as we can. If they will fill out the application online, that really expedites things, because when they call us, we do the application over the phone. And that takes, that takes a few minutes to do that, obviously. We do have a limited staff in the office. I think that's important to note too, because so many of our clients, they don't have internet access. If they can't pay their rent, they're probably not paying Spectrum for internet access either. So we do have people in the office. We are complying with all the CDC protocols. It's as safe as it can possibly be. But we do want to have a way for people to come in and submit their income documentation. And that's another point. People do have to supply us with documentation to show that they are eligible for our services, which means they have to be able to show that they've been impacted by COVID in order to access the funds that we have, just like with 211. And they have to show that they live in Pinellas County. There's just some basic things, but it's nothing that people don't have readily available. Typically it's a driver's license and proof of income, or a signed statement saying that they have no income right now. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that 211 has funds, and like Mickey said, it's going to be there's going to be a cutoff for applications soon. The county got some additional funding and realized that legal aid, once we work out an arrangement with the landlords and the attorneys say, okay, this is how much this client legitimately owes, they need to get that money in the landlord's hand quickly so that they won't file an eviction. Our goal in all this is to prevent the eviction lawsuit from even being filed, because once it gets filed, even though it falls off people's credit bureau report, it stays on their court record forever and shows that they had an eviction filed. So we're really trying to prevent that. So we also got through the Pinellas County Cares partnership, we got an additional pot of funds that are only accessible from if you go through a legal aid program. So if you have anyone in your community who still has unpaid rent, even if they've already gone to 211 and they've maxed out the $5,000, if they still are unemployed and they still have a need, please have them contact us, because we are all on the same team. It is not a competition. Unfortunately, there are more than enough people in need for all of us to stay busy. I don't care where they get services as long as they get help. So with that, I will also add, we've mentioned contact GLS or another legal aid. There's a community law program. They work with private attorneys. They try to get private attorneys to provide services for free, or they will contract with them sometimes. And so they provide services. There's also Bay Area Legal Services. They work mostly in downtown St. Petersburg. We are all over the county. Again, wherever your person feels comfortable going, please encourage them. We just don't want anybody trying to defend themselves in court. I cannot stress enough how important it is for them to have an attorney to advise them as to their rights, because there may be other things going on that they don't even realize with their case. And if they need assistance negotiating with the landlord, our team can help, and then we can help get them that money. And we can typically, I think what we're seeing, what our partner Pinellas Opportunity Council, they actually hold the money. They have promised that they're going to try to get the funds back to us for the landlords within 3 days. So we just want to make you aware of all of these resources. We certainly, like I said at the beginning, we don't expect you to be an expert in this. We just want you to know that it's complicated, but there is help available.
So with that, does anybody have additional questions from the group, or what are you seeing or that are coming into your offices at the various faith communities that maybe, either a trend you're seeing or other questions that maybe we can provide some resources to help? If you can unmute yourself and just ask, that would be great. So Jackie, I saw you unmuted yourself. Do you have anything coming in your offices?
Yeah, we have a lot of folks that are, concerned about rent and housing. And That was helpful for me to know that they can just bypass the phones with 211, because that's, of course, the biggest complaint right now is they can't get through. So just to know that they can email that bill to that's really helpful. The other resource, we've been directing folks to the family community centers that are dealing with a grant from JWB, and I do direct folks in that direction, and I believe that gets them into the system too. I guess my other question is there anything else out there that you've heard of for folks that are struggling, that, and like you say, you do run into folks that can't get online perhaps. Is there anything else that we're missing out there?
So those that have a challenge doing, submitting those documents, again, going to the neighborhood family center, setting that appointment, need to call them for that. The community as a whole has really, because there was so many, up to $26 million available to help, a lot of organizations who traditionally provide financial assistance for rent utilities stepped back and said, let's utilize all the federal funding that we have. And so right now, as I said earlier, we're about 18 million. We have to close that front door early to get through folks that are already in the process. And so I really encourage that email address. If you can help them take a picture with their, phone and email it. If you could do that at the church, faith community, that would be a huge help to get them into the process. So the announcement would be going out, and it's going to say when the program ends that they'll be no longer accepting any requests. But if a request is already in, we're going to continue to process those. It's just we can't accept the new requests or secondary requests to pay a second month of rent that we've already paid the first month. So there's going to be a date. And again, I really encourage everyone, get that in as soon as possible, because I know that date is coming. So please, if you can help them, that would be great. And then same thing with Gulf Coast Legal. If for some way your church can help either through access, I know some churches have some computer labs with their youth programs. If there's a way that you could help that person have access, that would also be helpful as well. To your point, access to internet and going to the neighborhood family centers has been a huge help. But we just need more of those access points for people.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
I just
Jan.
wanted to add the funding that we have, that is separate and a supplement to
Correct.
what 211 has, and it's just for the rental assistance, but we can also pay all the fees. So if they have late fees and all of that, and there's no cap. So whereas 211 and the county have a $5,000 cap, we have been told that as long as it is prudent, that we can use however much of that money we need to. So again, if you do have folks and rent is the issue, and they are potentially facing eviction, please have them call us. And if we can't help them, we will get them to Bay Area or community law program. Again, we just really want to try to help as many people as we can to get this money to pay the landlord so that they don't have an eviction filed, because they will still owe that money. So we just want to get that, off of them.
Other questions from anyone, if you could just unmute yourself and feel free to ask. Well, I don't see anyone quite yet. The other piece of calling 211, having people call 211 is not going to speed up the case. So I feel really bad when people let me know that they've called into 211 and they're waiting to start, send their ID in. You don't have to call 211. Send it to that email. Again, help, HELP, at 211tampabay.org. It is, I will say, the case reviewers are about 2 weeks behind, But again, I highly encourage to submit it because once it's in place, it's just going to go through that process. And as long as they have an overdue bill and they can prove they're a citizen, Pinellas resident, they sign an attestation statement, which is similar to what Robin talked about earlier about income level and that you're impacted by COVID, your employment was, you're going to get assistance with that. So it's going to help in the long term. That bill will be paid, even if they panicked and paid $100 towards their light bill. We're going to go with what's on that bill and pay that entire amount. So it's going to be helpful to people to get it in the process. That's why I'm really underlining that. And we do have another question in here. Angie has shared with us that she gets several people come in need of assistance with their electric, but bills aren't in their own names. Yes. And they say it makes a challenge to even get an extension. So I agree. We are seeing a lot of that. And a lot of it is stemmed from, it's been disconnected because of non-payment in the past. And they would have to pay that past due if they put it in their name. So we see many times it's put in another person's name to help. So because some of those back bills are very large. I've seen some up to $2,000 for past bills. For this program, if they do have an overdue bill, we try and work with them and whoever the person his name is on that bill. So if they're in the same house and the other person's name is on the electric bill, we try and get the ID and citizenship of that person who the bill's in so that we can pay that electric bill. All right. So we are working, our case reviewers are trying to help people with those. So, so again, and the other piece, you can apply for the CARES funding. You don't have to be unemployed right now or laid off or furloughed. It's just that you did during this pandemic, since anything after March 1st forward, that you were laid off. Now, if you're back to work now, you could, and you're behind because you were laid off, you could still submit for any back bill back to March 1st to get caught up to date. Obviously, with electric bills or water, we'd like them a little more recent. And even if it's $2,000 on the bill, we're going to be paying the entire $2,000. Okay, as long as it's under that $5,000 cap in total, and it's $5,000 per household. And again, that is just for, again, time is really ticking on that. So if you know people now, I would encourage you even to reach out to them and say, hey, you need to do this now, and not let it go too much longer because that door is going to close. Other questions?
Yes, could you restate the email address, please?
Sure. It is help, like I need help, HELP. So help at 211 tampabay.org.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No, there's no hyphens in the 211s, and those are numbers. So help at 211 tampabay.org.
Great, thanks.
And if in those, when that gets sent, if they can add their phone number in the email, that helps too. So we can contact them back. Sometimes they don't respond to their, don't always look every day or every couple times a day to their email that they have or wherever, and we're going to respond to that email. So if you email it in on their behalf, we're going to email you. So make sure you put the contact information up if it's a phone number in it, if you're helping them and say, you know, the client doesn't have an email. If you put the phone number, we'll be able to help them. Okay. All right. So I know, and we have about 5 minutes left, and I know we wanted to share a little bit. There are some downloadable resources available to folks. Behind me on the screen is a copy of our website at 201tampabay.org. Oh, it went off. Okay. Or behind me. And at the top, we have some banners. This is an old picture, but we do have some resources that are available if you want to go there. And know that resources are changing every day. And so I would highly encourage to really stay up to date on what resources are available. Not just through now through the end of December, but once a lot of those CARES dollars maybe end, moving forward in January, and that there'll be some other resources. I know Gulf Coast legal, their website, gulfcoastlegal.org, has a lot of resources as well. Robin or Tammy, I think you have a tenants' right brochure, right? That's up there. You have landlord and tenant tips and requesting assistance for Gulf Coast Legal. You can request on your website. Anything else on your website that maybe church office folks could download or print and give to people?
There's a ton of
Yeah.
information on our website, probably more than anybody would ever want. We have questions and answers about evictions that we update, as things change. We have tenants' rights brochures. We have the steps to an eviction. We have the CDC declaration form. There's like I said, more information than anybody would ever probably want to read, but it's certainly there for the taking. And if there's anything that you would like to share, if you have a church bulletin or an email that you send out to your members, we would be more than happy to provide you whatever information you think would be helpful. We can put that together and send it to you, and you can include it and get it out to them. We would be happy to do that.
Great. Terry, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I did. I also wanted to once again thank our partners, Gulf Coast, for assisting us here. But I'm going to send out an email to everyone in attendance with links to all of these resources that have been mentioned at Gulf Coast, and then also 211. And I'll also put in some information about the help at 211 and that kind of stuff. And if any questions pop up after this call during this week, please feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to get you in touch with the right people and the right resources. And together we can all make this happen and help those people that are knocking on your doors facing eviction.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, Tammy and Robin, for sharing your expertise with us today. I hope it was, and thank you everyone who joined us. I hope it was helpful. And again, please stay in touch. We're going to try and, like I said, hold several of these for really educating and helping provide more information on the resources available. I know you get flooded with questions and phone calls in the church office, and I just want to make sure we're helping out and giving you that information to help. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. It was great seeing you all, and stay in touch. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.